Hey, John here with Ricker Creations. How are you doing today? Make sure you let me know in the comments how you're doing. I really do want to know. We've got a build today. We're going to do a little bit of, we'll call it shadow boxing or maybe display case building. This was actually requested by one of the viewers, and I'm going to make an item that will lead them in the correct direction to build what they want. All right, let's get started. For today's build, we're going to, of course, need our wood, but we're also going to need a sheet of glass or a sheet of plexiglass. This is plexiglass. I got it Lowe's. It was $5 or $10 for an 8x10 sheet. Not too awful expensive. Uh, I'm going to use cedar fence pickets as I always do, but for the backing of this project, if you wanted to use plywood, you could use that and skip this panel glue up step completely. But if you want to do a panel glue up with wood instead of using plywood, we'll start that right now. Here we go. Since we're working with since we're working with cedar fence pickets, our first step will be to sand them down with some 80 grit sandpaper to get a little bit smoother working surface. We'll do more sanding and finishing later, but this piece is 24 1/4 inches. We won't be using the full length of that. We will be cutting it in half, so bear that in mind. You adjust your size to your sheet of plexiglass. This right here is one reason I like the cedar fence pickets. Even just after a quick run over with 80 grit sandpaper, they can come out looking so nice. You sand that down to 120, 180, or down to 220, that'll look really beautiful. If you have a jointer, you could run this through your jointer and not have to do this, but since I don't, I will do it on my table saw. You only need to cut just a little bitty strip off, just enough to get a straight, smooth, square edge. All right, good. Don't forget to put on your PPE. That is important. That gives you a nice, smooth gluing edge without losing too much width. You got a, I don't know, 1/4 inch, maybe there, 1/8 inch, something like that. Just a fine little strip's all you got to cut to make a joint. Now we're going to go split this in half. Check to see how long you are. About 22 1/16 will be about the halfway point of that. But measure your board, divide it by 2 to get your half your board reference, and go from there. Mark out your line like you normally do. Marking your line never changes. Always move your square up to your pencil. But do it easy enough so you don't bump your pencil off your mark. Double check your line to make sure it measures right. Okay. And then make your cut. As you can see, you've got you a nicely jointed edge to glue up. Now, let's do the glue up. Okay, for your glue up, we're going to use Gorilla Wood Glue Type 2. Make sure you've got plenty of clamps with you. 2, preferably 3 for this size of a glue up, in my opinion. Other people might not use but 2, but I like that third one. Flipping it, make sure you lay your board out like you're going to glue it up. Make sure your jointed edge is smooth and they don't have any gaps, and then put you some glue on there. I probably use way more glue than I should, but I would rather have enough than not enough, because I've had glue joints fell on me before, and that's no fun. When you unclamp it and it explodes apart, that sucks. Lay your boards together, bring your joint together where it needs to be. Make sure it's flat. Wipe a little bit of the extra squeeze out glue that comes out off, and then clamp it down. And if you do this on your workbench, do lay plastic out, because I can promise you there will be some glue come out the other side. Now, you don't have to clamp these super tight, because if you do, they will move on you. Just tight enough to hold them together till the glue dries. I'll go ahead and put one in the middle here too, just for good measure. Okay, while your glue joint's drying, you might want to put a little bit of weight on top just to make sure it don't bow up in the middle. I just use a stain can or 2 for that. That should hold, I believe that should be more than enough to hold that down flat. Now, while that dries, move on to your cut. Okay, we're going to cut some strips for the sides of the case. We're going to want them about an inch to an inch and a half. It just depends on what you're displaying in the case, what size they need to be. I think I'll go with an inch and a half just for good measure, but pretty close right there. Check and make sure it didn't move on you. Alright, good deal. Now just rip your strip down like you normally would. cut down 3.5-inch strips. These are right now 20 3/4 inches long. They will be cut down. So I think that'll be enough for what we're doing. If the math in my head is right, that'll be enough. But I guess we'll see as the build progresses. Now, we'll let the glue joint dry and we'll sand these down with the 80 grit to smooth them up some. We should have done that before we cut them because it's easier, but we didn't because we didn't have room. So, okay, I've been down for a couple of days with some severe dehydration. Let's get back to getting this finished here. I apologize. First thing we're going to do is check and see if our glue joint held up. And it looks like it has. That's what you should have, is a panel that looks something like that. You will have to sand it and clean it up. Just go over it with some 80 grit and chisel to get the glue, excess glue off of the bottom. Now that we've got our panel cleaned up some, we are going to set it to the side and we're going to be trimming it up a little bit more later. Now we're going to work on these strips for the sides of the display. So let's go to the miter saw. Okay, we're going to cut these angles at 45 degrees. If you have a compound miter saw, you can set it to bevel instead of miter, and that will be just fine, but we don't have that, so we're going to have to set the miter part and cut it on its side like this. First thing you want to do is look over your strips and see if any of them have a bad knot at the end, and if they do, you can go ahead and whack it off on to start get your first 45-degree angle there. Alright, after you get your first 45-degree bevel cut, you're going to set it back up here. You're going to want to flip it over. You're going to want 9 inches. From your long point. You got a little bitty strip like this, it's hard to hold your tape measure and measure. And then you're going to move it over and you're going to cut your miter on that point. And if you've got enough of that strip left, you can just flip it over and cut again. If not, start on a new strip and get you another 9-inch piece in exactly the same way. After you get both of your 9-inch pieces done, you're going to need two 11-inch pieces. cut the exact same way. Get those cut and let's get started. All of your strips cut. Here's what you're going to have. Next, you're going to want to sand the edges to clean them up a little bit from where they were at the saw and have a little bit of splinters. Also, if you're going to finish this by staining it or some other method, you might want to go ahead and sand these strips down to your 120 or 180 or however far you're going to sand it down, because you won't have much access to these for very much longer. The easiest way to do this glue up is going to be lay them out side by side, get you some painter's tape, flip it over so that the long ends of your bevels are facing up, and then we're going to tape the corners like so. After we get the corners taped up, we're going to flip it over as one single unit if we can. Make sure our tape stayed in place. If it didn't, we may have to redo it. Okay, now take your glue bottle, put your glue in your mitered joints, bevel joints, excuse me. Smear it around in there really good. Just like so. I've seen some people using those grill bottles that have the little brush attached, so that you can brush barbecue sauce and things on with. I believe I'm going to get me one of those and see how well that works for wood glue, because I got a feeling that would be a pretty handy thing to have. All right, now it's time to just start folding up your project. Fold it up to there, and then fold it up to that corner, and put some glue on this joint, and fold it up to there, and put your piece of tape on that corner. It's probably easier if you have your tape already ready to begin with, but if that falls down like that, just make sure you rub your glue back down in there, because a lot of it probably does squeeze out. Okay. Wipe off any excess glue. If you have a small square, check it to make sure to check your square. Check in a corner there and a corner there, and that will tell you if you're square or not. And let it dry. Just make sure you wipe off your excess. Be careful not to jar it if you've got it square. Looking good. All right, I'll be back when the glue dries. All right, time to see if the glue dried and it held together. Come over and take your tape off, and hopefully it won't explode. If you've ever done a glue up and have it come apart, you know what I mean when I say explode. Alright, looks like it held together. If you've got any glue squeeze out dried up on there, you're going to want to clean it off with a chisel, sand it down some, and then we're on to the next step. Next thing we're going to do is cut a couple of 1-inch strips to make the front frame of our display case. So set your table saw up to 1 inch. If you don't have a zero clearance insert plate for your table saw, put some painter's tape over the blade, because here in the next couple of steps you'll need it, and you'll see why. After you get your saw blade set, check your measurement one last time and rip you a couple of strips off of the fence picket. Alright guys, this next cut's a little bit sketchy. I'll go ahead and do this again just so you can see it. If you don't have a zero clearance insert plate for your table saw, crank your blade all the way down and get you some painter's tape and tape across where the blade sticks up. And then you're going to want to turn your saw on and raise your blade up. Okay, now we're going to take our two 1-inch strips and we're going to cut a groove in them. Right in the middle. I mean, you don't have to measure it, just pull your fence up and eyeball it till the middle of your blade is in the middle of your strip. Make sure your fence is square. Lock it down. Take one more look to make sure it didn't shift when you locked it down, because it does sometimes. Yeah, it did shift a little bit. See? That's why you always double check. Now we're going to raise our blade up a little bit less than halfway of the 1-inch strip. And then we're going to run it through like that to cut a groove. This is why you want the tape, because it will try to ride down into the groove of your saw if you're not careful. And right there is what you're looking for. And repeat it on the other strip. Okay, with your 1-inch strips, with the groove side, you're going to want 45-degree angles. You're going to want your groove on the short side. So just cut one corner off at the 45. I apologize. The phone rang and messed up my video on that last cut, so we'll redo it. Cut a little bit past your line so you can kind of sneak up on it. And that gives you just a little bit that you can creep up on with your saw. Yeah, still a little bit long. Now you're going to do it the exact same way for your two 11-inch pieces. After you get your pieces cut, your next step is you're going to fit this together and see how it goes. So slide your plexiglass into your groove on all of your pieces just to see how it fits. And then you're going to lay it against your side here and see how it looks. My miter saw is a little bit off, so mine might be a little bit crooked, and I do apologize for that, but for demonstration purposes, it will be okay. Okay, do you remember the backing we made? Now it's time to cut it down to size. So lay it down and lay your frame on top of it. And pencil around it so that you know where to cut. And then you've got you some pencil lines to follow on your table saw. Or circular saw or jigsaw, whatever you're using. After you make your pencil marks, you're going to want to take your square and run your mark all the way to the edge so you'll have an easier time lining it up on your saw. Line your pencil mark up with the edge of your saw blade. Make sure your fence is square. Line it back up again just to make sure it didn't shift too far when you squared it up. Lock it down. Check it one more time. And make your cuts. Do not forget your safety glasses when you make this cut. Repeat those cuts on all four sides. Alright, now we're going to check, we're going to lay our backing out on our frame of sides there. Make sure everything lines up reasonably well. Then we're going to put some glue around the edge of the frame, of the sides of the frame. My glue bottle has apparently sprung a leak somehow or another, so you've got to be careful when something like that happens. If you are going to stain this project, you might want to go ahead and do that now while everything's easier to get to. Just do not put any stain where you're going to glue, because stain and glue don't go very well together. If you ever have the top of your glue bottle pop off, you can take it completely off, like leave it completely off and just rub it on with your finger. Get that lined up the best that you can. You can put you some weight on it. You can clamp it. You can also put some weight on it, whichever you want to do. If you had any squeeze out come out on the inside, you definitely don't want to wipe it out too. Because it's going to be hard to get in there to sand it out or anything later. it nice and clamp down. And I think that'll do. Now we'll let that dry. We're almost to the finish line, guys. I'm curious, what do you guys do while your glue joints are drying? Me personally, I'll dance a little bit. I'll sing a little bit. La 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 la. What do you guys do? Let me know down in the comments. All right, let's check and see if our glue's dried up and everything's okay. Well, it looks like it shifted on me a little bit when I clamped it down, and I didn't notice it. But other than that, it held together. So now for this part. Okay, looks like it held together. Oh, no, I missed a corner. Okay, there's what we've got so far. You're going to want to go over your wood with your sander to get any excess glue that you can reach off of it that squeezed out during your glue up. Like, for example, right here on the edge. I guess I didn't get it wiped very good. I don't even know if you can see that or not in the camera. But there and right there. Definitely going to want to sand those down a little bit. So now we're going to put our hinges on. I've just got a couple of these little bitty butt hinges here or whatever. I think square corner utility hinges are what these are called. Now normally you would recess your hinges back in there, but we're not going to do that because I don't really have a way to recess them at the moment. Lay it out there and line everything up about where you want it. And you're going to take your pencil and mark where your holes are. Or if you have a center punch, you may also use it. Take you a small drill bit and drill you some pilot holes. Okay, so the frame around my plexiglass is too small for the screws to go through and not go into the plexiglass. And I don't want to run the screws into it, so I'm going to just try to epoxy the lid on to the hinges. Just apply your epoxy to the hinge. After you get it mixed up, try to make sure you don't have any epoxy down in the hinge mechanism because that'll cause problems. Okay, attach your lid and put a little bit of weight on it and let it dry. Okie dokie, I believe our epoxy should be dry now, so let's check it out. After you get done, you're going to want to clean your plexiglass. I don't have any glass cleaner down here to clean it with. You've got you a nice display case. You could use it to, if you sell jewelry, you could stick your rings in it. You could line it with felt and place, rings or whatever you sell on it. If you collect baseball jerseys, you could make a bigger one. Cut out a piece of styrofoam or cardboard in the shape of the jersey, stuff it up in the jersey, and then stick it in one of these and hang it on the wall to see. That would be absolutely perfect for that. I did not finish mine. This was just a prototype, but I think it turned out okay. Next time when I do my glue up, I'll make sure that it don't shift on me. But I do have a little bit of a gap here where my hinges are because I did not cut out a recess for them. You can do that with a chisel, or I could have probably done it with a knife if I would have tried. Or if you've got a router, you can cut your mortise out for your hinges with a router or whatever. But I think I'm pretty pleased with it. Well, there you have it, guys. Plexiglass lid shadow box. If you work in a restaurant or somewhere that you need to hang up a schedule, you could also use it for that purpose. All you have to do is change your size to fit any purpose you need. But I'm pretty pleased with that. If you got any use out of this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I definitely want to hear your comments below. I know I've been gone for a couple of weeks. I've had some health problems I had to deal with, but I'm back now. I do apologize for being gone so long. You guys have a great day.